First Peter chapter 3. 1 Peter chapter 3 this evening. And my mic, I thought it was on. I guess it was, and I turned it off. I don't know. All right, well, it's on now. 1 Peter chapter 3. And I want to share a thought with you tonight. I have been touching on thoughts and ideas relating to the end times, and not directly. I've not been addressing that like as my primary topic, but messages to really prepare us in our minds and our hearts and our lives for the difficulties in the days ahead. And I believe difficult days are ahead. I don't think we're in store for as much as I'd like to see a revival. I'm not. The revival that we're going to have is a revival up into heaven. My revival is going to be a calling up. But I think on this earth and in our culture that we're living in, we stand prepared to have an upheaval, a cultural revolt is what I see in our near future, with our Supreme Court making the decisions they have on everything from abortion to gun control and really taking their position for what they are and what it is, and what they should have done a long time ago, in my opinion. But I see. Well, here's the thing: when a rebel is given liberty to run, and then they are got hold of and somebody tries to rein them in, they are going to go berserk. And that's what we're seeing in the world today. Rebels going absolutely berserk. You won't let me kill my baby? Well, I'll kill you instead. That's basically what we're seeing. If you haven't watched anything or tuned in anything or read anything, that's basically where they're at. And they're burning down places, and they're just all kinds of hatred and putrefying things. But anyway, my point there is, it just might get a little difficult for us in the days ahead. Gas prices are probably not going to come down. I hate to be the bearer of bad news, but I don't foresee it. I'm not predicting anything. I'm not a prophet in that way. I'm just telling you that once they get them, they got them jacked up the way they got them jacked up, they're probably not going to let them come back down, unless the voters get the right crowd in there in this fall, and then in the subsequent elections, we might see some kind of relief there. But the reality is, we see the direction they're heading, and they have an agenda, and they're letting us know what that is more and more. So I want to help you. I want to help you to deal with that internally. Because the last thing that any of these situations should do or should cause is they shouldn't be allowed to steal your joy. They shouldn't be allowed to steal your peace. They shouldn't be allowed to steal your contentment, and they shouldn't stop you from loving life and serving God the way that you know you should. And so my thoughts are in that vein, if you will, and just trying to help people cope, maybe is the right term, or prepare themselves for the challenges that will certainly lie ahead of us. So 1 Peter chapter 3, I want to start reading in verse number 8. And just to forewarn you, I've got some scribble notes that I'm going to be looking at and sharing these thoughts with you. But this is expository sermons, but maybe not as well honed as I would like it to be at this point. But sometimes you got to say what you got to say when you got to say it. So here you go. 1 Peter 3, verse number 8. Finally, Be ye all of one mind, having compassion one of another. Love as brethren, be pitiful, be courteous, not rendering evil for evil or railing for railing, but contrariwise blessing, knowing that ye are thereunto called. Notice that that is what we're called to do, that ye should inherit a blessing. We want to give a blessing because we're going to inherit a blessing. Verse 10 is really the heart of the message. He says, for he that will love life and see good days, let him refrain his tongue from evil and his lips that they speak no guile. He goes on, but we'll get to some of that in a moment. I want to focus on this thought tonight, for he that will love life. You know, there's a lot of turmoil, a lot of frustration, a lot of anxiety. There's a lot of miserable, troubled people on the planet. You realize it doesn't have to be that way. It doesn't have to be that way. And how can we love life if we would love life, if we will love life, but not everybody will? But how can you? What are some tips to help you deal with it? Father, thank you for the day. Thank you for your love for us, and thank you that you birthed us for this hour. You purposed us for this time. We are here because you chose to have us here right now in this very hour that we're residing in. Pray that you'd help us and strengthen us and give us the wisdom and the tools and the thoughts that we need to love life and to make a difference, because we do. In Jesus' name, amen. He that will love life. I want you to notice that phrase and the way it's said there. He that will love life. And you understand that there are people that do not love life. The suicide rate is through the ceiling. There are people taking their own lives right and left, taking their own lives and taking other lives at the same time. We're seeing an insurgence again of what they call mass shootings. And oftentimes the people then end their own life as well. Why is that? Because they're miserable. They're troubled. They're fed up. They're angry with the world. But it doesn't have to be that way. I want you to know that, again, the phrasing. Notice this. He that will love life. It's a choice. It's how we choose to look at things. And I realize there's some things out there that I don't like. But do I have to let those things, do I have to allow those things to make me miserable? And the answer is no, I don't have to. I don't have to. Some people will love life and some people won't. Not everybody will. But there are some tips that God has given us in this passage that will help us not only to love life, but make life more lovable for those that are around us. And I want to share some of that with you this evening. Notice again verses 8 and 9. Finally, be all of one mind, having compassion one of another. Love as brethren, be pitiful, be courteous. Not rendering evil for evil or railing for railing, but contrariwise blessing, knowing that ye are thereunto called, that ye should inherit a blessing. Notice that when we're given evil, when we're railed upon, he says, give a blessing instead of a railing or an evil in response. That's a hard thing to do, isn't it? That's a difficult task. But notice that's what we're called unto. That's what God calls us to, so that afterward we would inherit a blessing. By the way, just because people are morons and knuckleheads and evil out there doesn't mean that I have to respond in kind. I want you to notice, and I want to share some things with you, and then we'll get into the core of the message here in a moment. But let me just lay out some things for you. It says in verse number 8, be of one mind. When you're around people with the same goal, the same objective, the same thinking as you have, it's much more pleasant. Life is much easier when you're around people and surround yourself with people that have the same goal and the same objective that you do. That's the key thing about having a church family, is you can get around people that have the same. I mean, our goal and our purpose is stated. It's recorded in the book. It hasn't changed, right? Not that any of us are perfect at that, not that any of us, but listen, that's my goal for my life. That's what I want to be like. And if I surround myself with other people and put myself in a position where other people are like that, at least I can, hey, we're working on, we may not be there, I may not be there, you may not be there, but I know where we're headed. If we stick together, I know what we're headed for. But, you know, be of one mind, people with the same goals, the same desires. And I mentioned this morning when I was preaching. If it's all about me first, which is what the world teaches, and that's what all of them are teaching. You know, that's the abortion activists and that's what they're talking about, me first. But I want to have inappropriate relationships and then abort the baby if that happens. I want to be able to do that. But you know what? That impacts other people than just you. But that's that selfish, self-centered motive that's there. And listen, when that runs rampant anywhere, whether it's in your home or in a church or in a town or in a society, you end up with angry people who are not loving life and who want to tear things apart because they're not getting their way. We need to get around people who we can be of one mind and one heart with. Right? The people of God, one mind, people with the same goals, the same objectives. He talks about having compassion. And listen, again, we can have compassion on those people that have a different view than we have, and we need to understand something. Jesus looked on them with compassion. Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do, even as they were killing him, nailing him to the cross. But that word compassion, mutually commiserative. You know what? Those people are miserable. And they don't even know why. They think it's because you won't let them kill their babies and whatever. That's not why they're miserable. They're miserable because they're selfish and self-centered. Ephesians 4:25, wherefore put away lying, speak every man truth with his neighbor, for we are members one of another. You know, the rest of the world, you know what they're like, right? We shouldn't be like that. If we want to love life, if that is our choice, I don't want to be angry like that. I don't want to be miserable like that. Then I have to make this choice. I need to be of one mind, and I need to be compassionate. I need to put away the lying and I need to speak truth with my neighbor. Notice again in our text in 1 Peter chapter 3 there, he says, being of one mind, having compassion one of another. Notice he says, love his brethren. Love his brethren. You can't accurately do that if you're selfish and self-centered and self-serving, self-indulgent. If you have lust in your life, you can't do that because it's going to lead you down another path. We need to choose. You know, I tell my young people at home, they're your brother. You shouldn't treat your brother that way. That's not the way brothers and sisters should act. Now, a lot of brothers and sisters and a lot of families today are beating the snot out of one another, saying all kinds of mean, hateful things toward one another, but that's not the way it's supposed to be. And if that's the way it is at your house, you got a problem. And you're the person that can make the difference there. Now, I don't want you to raise your hands, but I just wonder how many of us would say, preacher, if any man will love life, I don't really love life. I'm going to be honest with you. As a young man, I thought about taking my life on more than one occasion. It's true. Why? Because there was a lot of selfishness in my home, a lot of hatred in my home, a lot of heartache in my home, a lot of beating one another up in my home as a young person. And it made me miserable. Some of you look at me with the big eyes. Is that true, Darren? You were there. Some of it? Absolutely true. There's a place on my county road that even to this day, every time I drive by, I remember the times I thought about taking my life right there. Why? Because I didn't love life. It was miserable. Why was it miserable? Because we were all selfish and self-centered. But it doesn't have to be that way. And if it is that way for you, just understand, you can change that. You have the power to change that. And that's really what it came down to for me. I can't change anybody else, but I can change me. The next thing he says is we need to be pitiful. The word pitiful just simply means sympathetic, to have pity on somebody. Whether it's your brother or sister or mom or dad or husband or wife or fellow believer, or that knucklehead that thinks they ought to be able to kill their baby. You know, and I say knucklehead because I don't know how anybody could think that way, but we need to be sympathetic and we need to be compassionate towards them. Not to say that it's okay that they do that, but to understand that Jesus died for them. And if I am hateful and not loving, what hope do they have? If I'm just as mean and ornery and ugly as they are, and I don't love life any more than they do, what hope do they have of getting any help for the way they are? It says be courteous. The word courteous means friendly or kind. Again, I can't change them. But I don't have to respond to them the way they respond to me. If you have ugliness going on in your home, the quickest way to stop that is for you to stop it. And you can't change the other person, but you can change how you respond to their ugly. And I want to encourage you. Again, and some of this leads into this peacemaker deal that I'm working on for Sunday school, just so you know. You might hear some of this again somewhere along the way. But all of this reminds me of a passage, and I haven't even really gotten to my sermon notes yet. I'm just making some observations and sharing some things by way of understanding what he's saying. But it reminds me of Proverbs 18:24. Somebody do me a favor and find that real quick. Bible drill. Proverbs 18:24. First person with it, shoot their Bible up in the air and let me see it. Proverbs 18:24. Somebody got it? There it is. Ray's got it on his phone. Good job, Ray. You want to read it? Read it real loud. Oh! Aren't you glad Jesus is always friendly? But he said, if you don't love life and if you don't have friends, it's probably because you've not been friendly enough. You can't change them, but you can change you. If you don't love life right now, there's a reason for it, and it's sitting in your seat. It's trying to help you. I want to look at another verse real quick. Proverbs. Everybody turn to Proverbs chapter 3, verse number 9. We'll do a Bible drill for everybody. And when you get there, say amen. Chapter 3, Proverbs chapter 3. You was close to it already. I didn't even bother because I knew I was going to have somebody else read it. So, Proverbs chapter 3, verse number 9. That's not the verse that I wanted. Who wrote my notes down here? I hate when I do that. What's that? My secretary. I don't know if it was this. It was probably this one because it's handwritten. So I can't blame it on my left hand. If I was typing, it'd be my left hand's fault. Oh, on your phones, right? The truth of the matter is I just have the verse written down, so I didn't even write down the thought about it. I was just going to get there. And so anyway, we'll just move along. let's go back to our text, because the next thought comes from 1 Peter 3:9. The truth of the matter is, it might be 1 Peter 3:9 that I meant. I just was thinking Proverbs because of the last verse. You know, that, in case you didn't know it, preachers are humans too. In case you weren't aware of that, we just, you know, sometimes we don't get it all right, and we try, but verse 9, not rendering evil for evil. That's probably what I intended, and I wrote Proverbs instead. Not rendering evil for evil or railing for railing. The word evil there is an interesting word. You know, when we think of evil, we think, man, they're mean, they're cruel, they're ugly, they're unkind, they're hateful. No, literally, the word evil means worthless. They're just not worth, it's not worth anything. Not, you know, somebody does something to you, it's not helpful. It's evil. It's not helpful at all. It's worthless. Somebody says something that's worthless. He says, when somebody does something worthless to you, don't do something worthless back. He says, whether it's evil for evil, not rendering evil for evil, or railing for railing. The word railing means slander. They said something really mean about me or to me. He said, don't say anything mean back. Isn't that hard? That's a hard thing when somebody says something mean, nasty, just, ugh. Bite your tongue. He said, instead, you want to give them a blessing. Literally, it means to speak well of. So when somebody says something mean to you, man, your hair looks nice. When did you get that haircut? Man, you look like a strong young man. I can't find it. Aaron's a good young man. He really is. Most of the time. He agrees with me most of the time. He's trying. And can I tell you something? This is countercultural, isn't it? Because the world will tell you, if they spit on you, spit on them. If they smack you, smack them. If they do something to you, do a little bit more back to them and put them in their place. But God says when they do something to you that isn't what you like, you be a blessing to them. You speak well of them. You do something that, because why? Because it works. Because if you want to love life, if you will love life, you can't get into that spitting match. You can't get into that shouting match. You can't dive into that ugliness because you will not enjoy life anymore. Listen, we have an opportunity to inherit a blessing. Inherit a blessing. When do you inherit something? When are we going to inherit this blessing? Will it be right away? It'll probably be when we get to heaven. It'll be sometime down the road. But I think that, in a grand sense, I think that's true. But here's the blessing that we may inherit now, or at least soon, if we do this. Loving life. Listen, I told you years ago how it was for me. I didn't love life. I hated life. I was ready to check out. I'm thankful that it's not that way today. I'm thankful that it's not that way today. Many times we get frustrated because living for God isn't bringing instant gratification, and that's what the rest of the world is getting. They crushed their opponent. They they crucified the person that was standing against them, and they won, and they are rejoicing in it and reveling in it. The problem is they're going to have to do it again to stay on that fling of joy, or whatever they want to call it, satisfaction. Listen, instant gratification, no, but blessings coming. Yes, in the future, but I think in joy, knowing that we are doing the right thing. So now let's get to the really, meaty part of the message, just in case we weren't. Look at verse 10. For he that will love life and see good days, let him refrain his tongue from evil and his lips that they speak no guile. I want to love life and I want to see good days. Now understand something, in the world it's not going to be so. And this isn't the way it is for everybody. Everybody doesn't see this, and everybody doesn't think like this. But a person that does this is different than the world. You understand that? This is not the way you're going to learn this at school, kids. At least most schools, unless you're being homeschooled. And the truth of the matter is, there's some homeschools that are pretty miserable as well, I expect. I mean, homeschooling has really shot up. Now there's unsaved people teaching unsaved kids, unsaved practices and unbiblical principles. And maybe it's better than sending them off to public school, and maybe it's not. Maybe it's just different. But notice the key thoughts that he gives us here in verse number 10. For he that will love life, he that chooses to love life and see good days, notice what the counsel he gives is, let him refrain his tongue from evil, from worthlessness. The word in Greek is kekos. It means worthless, depraved, or injurious. Sometimes you got to bite it, and sometimes you got to draw blood. But don't allow yourself to get into that match, that ugly match with them, with your lips, with your tongue. It says as well, refrain his tongue from evil and his lips, that they speak no guile. The word guile is doulos, a decoy, a trick, a deceit. We've got to be earnest and honest. So the first step to enjoying life and to loving life, you see this? Guard your tongue. That's what he tells us. Be careful what you allow to come out of your mouth. Because if you want to love life, you got to be careful what you say with your tongue. Turn back to James chapter 3, just a few pages to the left. James chapter 3, the first 10 verses deal with this. My brethren, be not many masters, knowing that we shall receive a greater condemnation. Verse 2, for in many things we offend all. If any man offend not in word, the same is a perfect man, and able to bridle the whole body. Behold, we put bits in horses' mouths, that they may obey us, and we may turn their whole body. Behold, that also the ships, which though they be so great, are driven of fierce winds, yet they are turned about with a very small helm, whithersoever the governor listeth. Even so the tongue is a little member, and boasteth great things. Behold, how great a matter a little fire kindleth. Let me just clarify. He's saying the tongue is like the helm of a ship, like the rudder on a ship. Your tongue can turn your whole life around in a second. If you don't have control over that thing, it can really mess you up. It can start a fire that you can't put out. Verse 6, a tongue is a fire, a world of iniquity. So is the tongue among our members, that it defileth the whole body, and setteth on fire the course of nature, and is set on fire of hell. Where does the fire come from? It doesn't come from God. When you're when your tongue is controlled by your flesh, you can destroy a lot of things really quick. You ever seen a flamethrower? That's what our mouth is when not controlled by the Spirit. It says in verse 7, for every kind of beast and of birds and of serpents and things in the sea is tamed and hath been tamed of mankind, but the tongue can no man tame. It is an unruly evil, full of deadly poison. Do you know what that means? Well, it means we can't do it, so we just better not try. No, it means you better really work on it. It means you got control of it yesterday, but that doesn't have anything to do with today. It is a constant battle. It is a forever project that we're working on. He says in verse 9, therewith bless we God, even the Father, and therewith curse we men, which are made after the similitude of God. Out of the same mouth proceedeth blessing and cursing. My brethren, these things ought not so to be. And he goes on there, but again, the point is, if you will enjoy life, if you will love life, you have to get a grip on your tongue and on your mouth. All right? Let me give you a second thought here. Back in our text, 1 Peter chapter 3. For he that will love life, see good days, let him refrain his tongue from evil and his lips that they speak no guile. Notice in verse 11. Let him eschew evil and do good. Let him seek peace and ensue it. I want to focus on that first part. Let him eschew evil. Somebody else in the Bible eschewed evil. Who was that? Huh? Job. And God said, what a righteous man. God went toe-to-toe on Job's behalf with the devil twice and all of his buddies a third time. And so you're barking up the wrong tree if you're accusing him anything, because he eschews evil. He puts evil down. He stops it. He is going to do good. The word eschew means to shun, to avoid, or go out of the way. To avoid chaos, the evil, the worthlessness, the injuriousness, the depravedness that we talked about earlier. But instead does good, agathos, beneficial. Evil is worthless. Good is beneficial. How can you benefit somebody else? See, again, this is countercultural. This is different than you're going to hear from the world. The world says, hey, what about me? What can I get for me? What's in this for me? But you will not love life if that's your attitude and if that's your desire and if that's how you set out. But if your course is, how can I be a blessing to somebody today? How can I be a benefit to you today? All of a sudden, life becomes a whole lot better, a whole lot more lovable. Notice he says next, seek peace and ensue it. The word seek there is a word that means endeavor. I want it. I want to work at that. What? Peace. To set at one again. That's what it's talking about. We're going to talk in Sunday school for the next couple of weeks or months about being a peacemaker and striving to become a peacemaker and all of its benefits and good things. We want to be set at one again. That's how we're going to love life. But we're going to have to ensue it. What is that? It means to pursue, to follow after, and to press toward. In other words, it's not going to happen by accident. It's not just going to come upon you one day and fall out of the sky and all of a sudden you're going to love life. Well, when I get $1 million, nope, that ain't going to help you. Well, when I get old enough and I don't have to listen to my parents anymore, that is not going to help you. Because if that's your attitude now, I promise you hard days ahead. I guarantee it. Mark it down. If you think happiness is a circumstance, you're going to keep searching. And it's going to keep eluding you. When you realize that loving life really comes down to being a blessing to other people. Look at verse 8. Let me review a couple things with you here. Finally, be all of one mind. We need to be of one mind. We need to have the same purpose. And and we're not talking about being selfish. Well, we all have the same purpose. We're all selfish. Yeah, you're going to kill yourselves and kill one another until the top dog wins and he finds out that he lost because he can't be happy. Did I write this down? Yes, I'm not going to say that right now. I'll save it. Notice he says also, having compassion. We need to be compassionate. He talks about love. He talks about being pitiful and being courteous. Do you notice a theme about all those words? What do all those words involve? Can you be any of those things? One mind, compassion, love, pitiful, courteous. Can you be any of those things by yourself? You're the only person in the room. You're the only person in the house. You're the only person on the planet. Can you be compassionate? Can you be of one mind? No. All of these things are directly tied to your relationship with other people. Want to love life? Your life is tied, like it or not, to other people. If you love life, it's because you have a good relationship with other people. And if you don't, it's because you don't have the right relationship with other people. All of those involve others. Look at verse number 9. Not rendering evil for evil, or railing for railing. Contrarize blessing. Thereunto called that you inherit a blessing. Again, has to do with our relationship with others. And in verse 10, using right words, controlling your tongue, has to do with how we interact with others. In verse number 11, avoiding evil and doing good has to do with how we treat others. Seeking peace requires me and others. You see the theme here? You cannot love life if you do not have a good relationship with others. If everybody would just leave me alone, I'd be happy. No, you wouldn't. You'd be miserable. Because until you learn how to deal with others, you will not love life. You cannot. Because God made you to need others. He made you connected to others. Listen, you were born into a family. Like it or not, believe it or not, you got a mom and a dad. And it took both of them. And you may have siblings. I can't even tell you, haven't counted how many times people, you got how many kids? Man, I can't deal with the one I got or the two I got or the three I got. How do you do it? You know what? I love my family. And I'm not saying they're perfect. Please understand, they're not. Many of them are still being developed and still being worked on and still being explained things to. But I'm thankful that my kids don't treat their brothers and sisters like I treated my brothers and sisters. I'm thankful. I'm thankful that that's the case. Because I know growing up, none of my brothers loved life. So let me say this. Happiness is going to come from God because you treat others right. Sadness comes when you treat others wrong. You cannot have happiness from God if you treat others wrong. Because if your brother is offended with you, you can't even offer God an offering. You can't please God if you've got a brother that is at odds with you. It doesn't work. So if you want to love life, if you really want to love and enjoy life, you've got to learn how to treat others. You've got to work that out. I want you to notice as we close verse number 12. It says, "For the eyes of the Lord are over the righteous, and his ears are open unto their prayers. But the face of the Lord is against them that do," there's the word again, "evil, worthless." What's he saying? He's saying, I'm watching how you treat others. I'm watching how you interact with others. And if you're righteous, I will listen and I will help. And if you're evil, you're never going to enjoy life because God won't allow you to. He's not going to allow you to. If I was to ask how many of you would like and would want to enjoy life, you would like to have a life that is wonderful, peaceful, joyful, I have to believe that not everyone would want that, but if I was to then ask how many of you have that now, not all the hands would be able to stay up. Can I just point out for you this evening that if you are not enjoying life, it really comes down to how you're treating and interacting with other people? And if you want to change that, if you do want to enjoy life, then you're going to have to get into this book and find out how to treat other people, regardless of how they treat you. Because listen, God doesn't say, I will let you enjoy life if they treat you right. No, he says, I am watching over the righteous. They will enjoy life if they treat others right. So what they're doing to you, whoever they are, and what is happening out there is not where you get joy from. You get joy and you love life from God. Because he sees you treating others the way you should treat them. Just a thought. Let's stand together. You got a situation in life. Maybe it's youngsters that can't get along. Maybe it's coworkers that can't get along. Church members that can't get along. Here's the question to ask. Do you love life? No, I hate this. Is miserable. I hate. How are you treating them? Well, they're just, no. I didn't ask you how they're treating you, because that don't matter. The question is, how are you treating them? So here's the invitation tonight. You find yourself saying, man, I don't love life quite like maybe I'd like to. Life isn't quite as enjoyable for me as it maybe should be, or I'd like it to be. Maybe you need to pray and ask God to show you what's going on there with your relationship with others. Maybe you're being evil, worthless, instead of blessing righteousness. Father, I want to thank you for these tonight. I pray that you bless. As we head off into life, as we head out into our week, as we experience the wickedness that's all out there, and we can still enjoy life if we'll do right by you and by others. And I pray that you'd help us tonight with this thought, that we might have a life of joy and a life that we enjoy and a life that we love even. We'll thank you and praise you for what you do in Jesus' name.